we are back with Dhruv Agarwala, CEO at REA India, for part 2 of a conversation in which we're going to tackle some different topics than what you may be used to. Dhruv, I'll let you take the lead on this one. Health and well-being in the workplace. Not a topic that's talked about very much, but I was Googling an image for you for a headshot for our image, and your look has changed quite a lot in the past few years. So I thought I'd give you the option to share some personal stories, perhaps.
Sure, Harvey. Look, this is something which I'm very happy to candidly share, and something I'm very proud of. You would have probably seen quite a few articles, written around my health. But my peak weight, in February of 2021, was around 151 kilos plus. And now I'm down to 80 kilos, all sort of achieved organically. So no sort of assistance from surgery or medication or any of that. It's just been changing, my lifestyle completely, and setting sort of some realistic goals, short-term goals, long-term goals, clearly measuring, how I'm doing towards those goals, being consistent at it, course-correcting where things, were not working out. It was sort of a relentless pursuit towards that objective. And I'm sort of happy to say, I got there. It took me about 18 months. I started the program in February of 2021, and by around August of 2022, I was sort of, down to my current weight. And now it's getting close to 2 years since, and I've sort of maintained it. And even if I've gone up a couple of kilos, it's mostly lean body mass, so more muscle, and actually sort of reducing my body fat rate. So it's been a sort of an obsession for me. I've read a lot, I've researched a lot in terms of what my health, my exercise regime should look like, how much should I sleep, what should I eat, the supplements I should take. So a lot of work has gone into that, and I'm sort of completely focused on that as my priority. And I think from a work perspective, Harvey, where the big change has happened is previously when I looked at sort of work-life balance, right? It always used to be about work and saying work was the topmost priority, followed by sort of family, and then self was a poor number 3. And I never ended up spending time on myself, which I think, was the big mistake. And I realized that I was probably not as productive at work as I could have been. I was probably not as present with my family as I should have been, because I was not focused on myself. And now I think I've sort of inverted that. Now my focus is on myself, and my personal physical well-being, emotional well-being, mental well-being is my topmost priority. And that frees up for me, time, for family and for work. So I'm more present with my family, able to do a lot more, able to focus a lot more, actually spend quality time with my family. And so family actually feels that I'm more present than I ever was, despite taking out sufficient time in my daily routine for my exercise, right? And even at work, I'm far more effective, far more alert, far more present, right? And far more believes in me a lot more. They've sort of seen the transition, they've seen the transformation. They're like, look, if our CEO and founder can achieve this, we can achieve almost anything. So I think it's almost been like, role modeling, for my team, to achieve almost the impossible. When I tell people I've lost 71 kilos, they just can't believe it. The first question I get asked is, was there surgery? Was there medication? And when I'm saying, look, it's all organic, it's a hard one for people to digest. But the fact that it's happened, I think is a great sort of inspiration for people. So not only at work, but even amongst my friends, family, I've encouraged a lot of people to, take on healthy habits and actually, put, sort of prime importance on health, which I think then ultimately flows into, family as well as work. So for me, it's been a complete sort of 180-degree change in philosophy and how I've approached work and how I've approached life and sort of a balance between both.
Dhruv, how much of that was diet and how much was exercise?
So Simon, always sort of a combination. So the mantra which I followed was you got to burn more than what you consume. So at the end of the day, if you look at it in terms of how much can you burn in a day, given all the demands of work and time that we have for other things, there's only so much you can exercise, right? Which means there's almost a finite cap on how much you can burn, right? I mean, let's say for most normal people, their basal metabolic rate or resting metabolic rate would be about 2,000 calories odd, right? Thereabouts. And if you manage to get like 1,000 move calories, you're talking about, burning 3,000 calories, which means if you were to lose about a kilo and a half a week, you'd need to kind of consume less than 1,700 calories a day. So in reality, I would say that in order to get this weight loss equation working, about 7,800 odd calories or thereabouts equals, 1 kilo of weight loss. To create that deficit on a weekly basis, you really got to be mindful of what you eat. Because as I said, there's only so much you can, or so much time you can spend on exercise. So I was relentless on calorie counting. I would literally enter every single, calorie I took into my mouth, into my app. So I genuinely knew, what I was eating, and I could see the deficit being created on a daily basis. And hence my weight loss sort of, panned out the way I kind of thought about it. And frankly, I hit no plateau because, you really hit a plateau when you think you're creating the deficit, but you really are not because you're not measuring it. So I was measuring it relentlessly. So I knew I was creating the deficit and I knew I would lose weight. And sometimes it would happen that, you created a deficit, over a period of 1 week. You never saw any weight loss happening that week, but suddenly your weight would drop the following week. So it was really about that deficit, Simon. And the deficit, I think, to answer your question, is best created or more easily created by focusing more on your food than on your exercise. I mean, an hour a day is sufficient. You don't need to do more than that. And now I have a pretty well-planned regime where I do 3 times a week of weight training. I try and get in about, 200 minutes of, what they call zone 2 exercise, which means I burn fat, but not muscle. And then I do, a couple of times a week of, HIIT training to, keep my heart rate high, get to my maximum heart rate, to keep that healthy. So exercise regime is actually very easy to fall into. It's always the food which is the hardest amongst people. And I'm a foodie even today. So that's the most difficult one. But over a period of time, I figured out a lot of hacks, right? I mean, portion control, you can have everything, but do it, mindfully, eat less. If one day if you want to have a nice bottle of wine, then go easy on the main course. You can't have like a nice steak dinner and dessert and appetizers, and a few sort of nightcaps after a great bottle of wine. You've got to sort of balance it all out. And I figured that hack now in my own head in terms of how to do that. And yeah, I mean, so enjoy life, yet maintain my weight.
You mentioned a word in there I think is quite important, is mindfully or mindfulness,
Yep.
which is really the art of being present at whatever you're doing and being mindful of not only the actions you're taking, but the consequences of those actions. So that's being totally present. How do you, and you used clearly a tool you used was an app to help, track things and I assume, prompt you occasionally to go to the gym or whatever. I was like, come on,
That's
time
right.
to leave the desk and
That's right.
Go sweat. But what other sort of approaches did you use just to make sure that you're in the zone? If you're going to make sure that you don't start eating too much because you're not mindful or present at that moment. or you're in the gym, but you're sort of, stuffing around and not really getting the most out of it. What are the other sort of tricks that you use to help make sure you're mindful about what you're doing?
So look, what I realized, Simon, was that if when I reflected back on my habits, right, I realized that I ate not because I was hungry. I ate because I was looking for the dopamine rush, really. So it's like you're working hard, you're sort of in a sort of semi-stressful situation, or you've been at your desk for a long time, you haven't stepped out, it's stuffy. Maybe you're dehydrated, haven't had enough water. All that sort of manifests itself as quote unquote hunger, and you reach out for the unhealthiest stuff, right? I mean, because that's what gives you the dopamine rush, right? Whatever that might be. It's like a fried, bag of chips or whatever that might be. And I realized very quickly that it wasn't real hunger, but I was sort of compensating for other things with food. And once I kind of recognized that, I started using tricks to kind of avoid that. Typically for me, I would get that sensation of feeling when I was stressed, or it was about 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. In the evening, and had a long day of work. And in India, we work till late, right? So 4 p.m., 5 p.m. is still sort of not the end of the day. It's still 2/3, right? So it's still 1/3 of your work left. So that's the time you would sort of reach out for that unhealthy snack. What I started doing is now if I'm stressed, rather than reaching out to my food cabinet and getting food out, I put on my sneakers and go for a run or go for a walk. Not only does it clear my head, I'm able to come up with solutions to the things I'm stressing about, because it's, I'm in the zone, I'm exercising, I'm purely focused on the problem and, my sort of physical movement. And you actually, don't even get the calories in. You burn calories, you get an endorphin high, because that's what exercises do. When you exercise, you get endorphins in your body, which last you for longer. And it's not like the dopamine rush of eating food. You eat food, you get the dopamine high. After half an hour, you're looking for more dopamine, right? So that's a hack which works really well for me. Same thing in the evening, right? What I do is I don't necessarily exercise in the morning. I actually exercise when I have this need for food, because then I replace the hunger with exercise. So not only does it avoid putting calories into my mouth, I actually burn calories. So I figured some of these hacks which have allowed me to not sort of fall off the wagon, right? Because it's very, very easy to revert back to old habits. I think the biggest question I've been asked, in the last 2 years is how have I kept it off, right? And I'm like, look, now it's no longer about keeping it off. I'm a different human being altogether. And what I do now is just like par for the course, for me. And hence, there are no sort of, it's not a strain, or it's not a burden for me to do what I'm doing. But yes, it's a lot of thinking which has gone behind it.
Yeah. The other thing that is, we talk about exercise, talk about food, sleep. Now, if you guys are finishing work super late, and how do you get that balance, right? Do you try to get 8 hours sleep, 6 hours sleep? How do you think about sleep?
So Simon, look, it's as they say, I think that the recipe for a healthy life really is nutrition, exercise, sleep. I'm also very careful about my hydration, because I feel that we're not hydrated enough, and we never recognize that as a big issue. If you drink 4 liters of water a day, I can tell you it's very, very easy to control your hunger, and generally sort of get rid of toxins in your body, and it's great. But to your point, sleep is super critical. I'm very conscious of the fact that if I know it's going to be a late night, I don't schedule stuff in the morning and I sleep. I think what COVID has done, Simon, I think it's also changed the paradigm about how we work. Previously, it was all about, being in the office for a certain number of hours. I think now the paradigm is it doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, how you're doing it, you've got to sort of deliver the results and the outcome. So that, I think, flexibility, which COVID has sort of taught us that, look, it's okay to work from anywhere. It's okay to show up late to work if you've had a late night, but had a proper night's sleep. I think that's really worked well for me. So if I know I'm working late, if I know maybe not just working late, if it's going to be a late night, it's a celebration, I make sure I sleep my 7 to 8 hours. I mean, it's harder for me to sleep 8. I wish I could get there, but 7, does it for me. And that's what I aim for. But it's not just about the hours, Simon. It's also about the quality. So I track my sleep very carefully. How much of REM sleep I'm getting, how much of deep sleep I'm getting. And I've realized that the worst thing you can do is have alcohol, because that's what messes up your deep sleep and REM sleep. And you can measure it. Try going off alcohol for a week and measuring your sleep. And then you kind of take alcohol after that and measure your sleep. You'll see the difference. It's so noticeable on your app that you'll be amazed and surprised. People always poo-poo these apps and say, look, it's not accurate. Look, you don't need to be accurate to the last decimal point. You got to look at qualitatively, whether you're in the right zone or not. And believe me, don't have alcohol for a week and then have alcohol for a night. Measure your sleep pattern, and you'll see it that sleep quality is not as good. So common stuff, right? Don't drink alcohol late at night. Don't sort of, be on your screen and get that blue light before you go to bed. Listen to some music which you enjoy. So you're listening, not sort of watching. All that, helps you sleep well. And believe me, once you're sleeping well, your cortisol levels in your body are low, which is basically the stress hormone. It means you actually can lose weight. People who, work out hard, even eat less, sometimes don't lose weight because the stress hormones are so high in the body because of lack of sleep that they're unable to kind of lose that weight. So I think it's all, again, like as I was saying, it's a symphony. Things need to tie in all together for one to be, healthy. So it's sleep, exercise, nutrition, hydration, all of that together, and mindfulness, I think, to kind of drive all of that, which really works.
Dhruv, you mentioned going back to the start about how you feel like you've become a leader. You feel like you're more focused and alert in the workplace. Could you give us some examples of, real tangible results you feel like you've got out of being a healthier person that has actually led to better maybe results or better satisfaction in the workplace itself?
So, interestingly, Harvey, I think our 2 or 3 best years of the company have been during the period I've lost my weight, but I won't sort of solely attribute it to that. I think there are many things which have happened at the same time as well. There's a lot of noise in that as well. But I would clearly say that I've become a better leader and a more effective leader, in the sense that I feel that I have, people view me very differently today than they would view me before. And now I kind of recognize that, right? I think people do view me as some. I would say people see this weight loss as my biggest accomplishment, more so than what I've done probably in the business world. And the fact that I've done this makes them see me in a very different light. They see me as someone who's capable of high discipline, capable of sort of setting lofty goals and then putting the right metrics in place to kind of achieve those. They just view you as somebody who can achieve very, very hard goals and hard sort of objectives. I think that changes things, in the workplace as well. And then, we don't realize it, but, when you're more alert, when you're more focused, you're able to take decisions a lot quicker. You're able to process information a lot faster. There's more clarity of thought, which allows you to even take that information, process it quicker, and then sort of, figure out, what the right decisions are. There's just more, I feel there used to be like brain fog of sorts, which is completely gone now. So I actually feel like a different person. So it's hard for me to, kind of even explain it to people. But, I've, a lot of people have reached out to me post my sort of weight loss journey, which I shared publicly. to help them achieve their weight loss targets. And I'm like, look, you just got to visualize that your life would be completely different. I think I've become almost 20 years younger. People always ask me, do you have another startup left in you, right? I'm like, if you'd asked me this question 3 years ago, I would have said no. If you ask me that question today, the answer is yes, maybe even two, right? so I just feel so high energy at the moment that I feel that I'm back. I'm no longer 54, but like 34 maybe.
Could I ask you one more follow-up question, which would be, have you been able to spot other people's physical and mental struggles in the workplace? Are you able to observe and sort of pass on your advice to people within your own team, and then extending that further? Is this something that you would want to be investing in as a business in terms of looking after your employees' well-being, giving them yoga classes, therapy sessions sponsored, for example, things like that?
So Harvey, absolutely, right. We, my own personal journey has led me to believe that focusing on one's physical well-being and mental well-being is not just, good for you as an individual. I think collectively as an organization, we would benefit if our colleagues, employees are physically healthy, which means more present, more alert, are mentally in a good state, which again means sort of more productive at work. So we do have programs around mental well-being. We do have programs around healthy eating, regular health checkups. So there is clearly a movement at work which actually creates space and avenues for people to take a step back and focus on their mental well-being as well as their physical well-being. I believe that, while, we've taken baby steps, there's a lot more to be done. I personally do invest the time. If anyone reaches out to me in the organization, asking me for what did I do or what my story is, I'm more than happy to invest that time, even personal time, because I do believe that even one or two lives changed can make a dramatic difference.
Absolutely. I mean, there's one other thing I want to come back to, and this sort of goes back to acquisitions. Actually, you were part of obviously you were a selling acquisition in terms of REA comes in, and then you're part of a buying acquisition in terms of housing.com. I want to sort of, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I want to sort of touch on like the mentality of how your approach to leadership and decision making changed according to those two different experiences in terms of being sold and then buying as well.
So the interesting thing, Harvey, is that we bought housing before we sold the entire company to REA.
Okay.
So the housing acquisition actually happened in 2017. At that time, REA came in as an investor, but we got acquired fully by REA and News Corp only in 2020. But look, as a buying company, my philosophy always is that firstly, one shouldn't think of it as being a buyer or a seller, because the moment you start thinking of as somebody's being bought and somebody is buying, then it creates almost a disparity in the way you think about things. It's always got to be like we are coming together, right? And when you're coming together, you got to create a sense of shared objectives, shared values. So when we acquired housing, the first thing I said is, let's do a values and mission and vision exercise, where it's no longer about PropTiger having bought housing and then foisting a vision upon housing or foisting a set of values upon housing. Because look, we were 1,400 people. There were about 900 people in housing at that point in time. We did shrink to about 1,400 people overall, but it wasn't just housing, PropTiger people. There was a large, number of people who stayed back from housing, a large number of people who actually went out of PropTiger, right? But I think what was the most important reason for our success and making that acquisition super successful, I remember one of our VCs saying that, Dhruv, we are stepping into a sinking ship and you're going to sink along with it, right? I was pretty confident that it wasn't a sinking ship and we wouldn't sink, right? Part of the reason was creating this, set of common goals, a shared vision, and a shared set of values. And we spent time doing it. And everybody felt that we owned the same company. It wasn't about one buying the other. It wasn't about one being sort of the acquirer and one being the acquiree. And acquirers always get put on a pedestal. So we kind of never had that approach. Second thing was we always chose the best person for a particular job when, we had sort of, more than, one person, who could do a particular job. It didn't matter whether that person came from housing or prop tiger. I think being very fair and equitable, I think, helped us. And then there was an integration plan, right? We knew exactly what we had to do. We knew exactly, who was going to be, in a particular role. And we executed that very quickly. So there was no uncertainty amongst people that whether we are going to be in the company, not be in the company, et cetera, et cetera. That really helped. So there was a plan which we went in with, and we executed it fast, and we communicated. Look, the other thing which I can't, sort of emphasize enough is during all of this process, we need to, communicate, because if you're not communicating, then that causes a lot of issue because people are always uncertain. And communication doesn't mean that you lie. You got to be honest, because if you don't walk the talk, if you say something and do something else, you break that trust immediately. So we were brutally honest about what we were going to do. We're very transparent, and we communicated that. And that allowed us to build the faith and confidence, in the folks coming in from housing, which led this to be, I would say, a hugely successful, acquisition. I'm sure there have been others, in the Indian market, but I can, say this with conviction and confidence that this was one of the most successful acquisitions, given the size and scale of the number of people, who came on board, the popularity of the housing brand, given all the history behind housing. I think all that, made this into a very, very successful acquisition for us. Now, switching gears, coming to, being acquired, I think, again, my view is, I was very clear with REA, right? I said, we are in India. We know the Indian market very well. It's not the same as Australia. If we are going to follow the recipe which has worked in Australia and India, we're going to fail. And, to their credit, they recognized the fact that it was a local market with local nuances. It was not vendor paid like Australia. It's a very different market. The competitive dynamic was very different. It wasn't like, what it was in Australia. So they recognized the differences, gave us enough runway and leeway to do what we wanted to do, gave us the freedom and the flexibility, said of course, the guardrails, right? That this is what it means to be part of the REA group. These are things which we cannot do. And as long as you do not do these things, you can do whatever you want, within the local context to make sure the business is successful. I think that open dialogue and transparent dialogue in the beginning helped. I was very, very clear that, look, if you allow us the flexibility within these guardrails, we will deliver. But if you sort of send folks from Australia and tell us what to do in a market which they absolutely don't understand, then that's a recipe for disaster. And I think, in all honesty, I think, my transparency, they're sort of acknowledging that transparency and then delivering on that promise, I think has allowed us in the last 3 years to actually make it one of the most successful periods in our company, right? I mean, otherwise, just imagine what happens. RE and News Corp come in, they acquire a company, to your point, Simon, sometimes, bureaucracy comes in, there's mistrust. Big companies, tend to sort of foist their operating, rhythms, principles, on the acquired company. They all believe that, every market is the same. They deploy the same playbook which has worked for them elsewhere. And guess what? All hell breaks loose. The acquiring company thinks that the acquired company never told things the way they were. They broke their promises. They didn't deliver on what they said they would, and all of that, right? So it never worked for anyone, right? But in our case, it's actually been the opposite. It's worked wonderfully. We've over-delivered on many of the promises we've made. We spoke about becoming market leader in terms of audience in 2024. We delivered that in 2021. Within less than a year of being acquired, because we got that freedom and flexibility. So I would say that it's been a partnership, a real partnership, where credit goes to Ari in Australia for leaving us alone, where it mattered, and to us for respecting, what the guardrails were, and making sure that, we worked within those guardrails, but then, sort of doing what we had to become successful. And we took the accountability because no one told us what to do. I was accountable for everything. I said, I have to make this work. If someone had told me that, look, this is what you got to do, there would be no accountability. I'm like, fine, I did what you told me to do. If it worked, great. If not, it's not my problem. So I was fully accountable because I was given that flexibility. So that's how this worked for us.
Oh no, Simon, handing over to you. Sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say that super interesting how you think about it and how clearly over time, as you your weight reduced and your head became clearer, the fog lifted, as you talked about,
Yep.
and how you describe it now is a very clear, succinct way to think about M&A type work. Very, very clear, very honest, very direct. So I sort of appreciate that. Just want to get back to the health aspect, the thrust of what we're chatting about today. And I think one of the things that, if you look at our demographics of this audience, guess what? We're more male than female and more middle-aged than not. And what I would thoroughly request and encourage everyone to do is actually go and get health checks. I think it's something that doesn't happen often enough. And I think we all get caught up. And Dhruv, something you were talking about before, you get in this sort of treadmill, right? You're working 12 hours a day, every day. Work is the most important thing. Everything else is irrelevant, right? Gets sort of shoved to, if I get time, I'll have, I'll look at it. And one of the things that goes in that category is health and health checks. And the just a quick sort of story. Back in my COVID really screws up the years, but I'll try to get them right here. 2019, I went and did a health check in about August. And, they put you on the treadmill, they check your heart, they check everything, right? They poke and prod places you do not want to be poked and prodded, okay? Do all the tests and thing. And they said, oh, you've got a very high PSA. I'm going, really? What's that? And they go, yeah, let's have a look. I had stage 3 cancer, prostate cancer, which if I had let go, the guy said, if you'd let this go for about another 3 months, you'd be dead, right? I wouldn't be sitting there. So just out of pure luck, I happened to go get tested, and then going, no, I don't believe you, right? Because why would you want to believe that? So I went to another guy who poked and prodded, and anyone who's had one of those biopsies done has never felt pain like you felt pain having that sort of biopsy. They confirmed that it was late stage 3 and whatever, right? Blah blah blah. And then you go off and I chose to be operated on and have it removed. But that becomes a bit of a wake up call, right? Because you are on the treadmill, you for whatever reason are running like mad, either because you have to or because you think you have to. Often it's the second, not the first, in that whole process. And so it then sparks the question is how do you encourage Dhruv in your team, right? You've got a whole bunch of people in your business. Do you say, hey, go out, get health tested on a regular basis, not like once every 10 years, but a little bit more frequently?
So we have a program, Simon, at work, where we offer these free health checkups for people, which allows them to at least do the basic stuff. Look, it's not something where it's as comprehensive as something I personally get done, right? I mean, it's very, very comprehensive. It's expensive, spend a lot of, time and money doing it. But again, the good part is that a majority of the demographic at work for us is very young. It's like around 26, 27 would be the average age, which means by and large, most people are healthy. But by doing these regular health checkups and encouraging that, we're encouraging a habit, early on, so that,
Yes.
as they sort of become older, obviously, you become sort of more wealthier, you're more sort of open to spending that money and, time on getting those comprehensive checks done. But we believe by encouraging that at the early years, we are encouraging that habit. So I'm a great believer of that, Simon, because, it goes back to the old saying. I think Peter Drucker said it first. And, we used to always say that at GE, where I used to work, that you manage what you measure, right? And it's one of those things. I mean, if you're going to produce a P&L statement, a balance sheet, or a scorecard, or, OKRs, whatever you call them for your business, and then run your business based on that, then why wouldn't you do like a basic health check? But, it's basically like a phenotype of your body, right? I mean, it's an observable trait, whether it's blood markers, whether it's, other digital markers, right? I mean, I every now and then go into the Apple Health app, and it's amazing how good they are at tracking various things. And the moment I see a difference, I mean, this is something which I really want to share. One day at work recently, I had a very stressful moment, right? And I saw my Apple Watch. It said that you're sitting and your heart rate is over 100. Now, normally my heart rate is 54, right? And I didn't realize, but that stressful moment caused my heart rate to go up to over 100, right? So that was like, okay, you know what? I need to do more meditation and be more mindful, more than what I already am, because I can't let a stressful situation like that take my heart rate to over 100, right? So I'm saying that today we have the tools to measure. And once you have the tools to measure, you are able to see results like this in real time. Blood tests, of course, they're not real-time results, but, you have digital markers readily available. So we need to use them, more mindfully, more regularly, and look at it comprehensively. The way I see it, I think between getting yourself genetically tested and knowing what you're prone to, Simon, look, I don't know. I mean, it's a remarkable story that you shared about yourself, and, hats off to what you still continue to do, after what you've been through. But maybe a genome test might have revealed that there was a propensity for you to have that, right? So between sort of getting yourself tested, getting your blood work done regularly, and look at your digital markers, I think there's a pretty comprehensive view of your health you can get on a real-time basis. It then allows you to get the right interventions. It doesn't all have to be surgery. It doesn't have to be all, medicines. But, you can fix your diet, you can fix your exercise, you can take the right supplements, and fix yourself. And frankly, I cannot again emphasize, more that this whole thing of, being on the treadmill, being busy for 12 hours a day and relegating sort of well-being, to the background, it's the worst paradigm. It has to change. It's got to be you, yourself first. And believe me, once you're in top shape physically and mentally, as I said earlier, you're more present with your family, you're more productive at work. That goes without saying. So we got to change the way we think.
Drew, I agree with that. And I think, like all things in business, culture, strategy, a lot of it comes from the top, but we never think about health as coming from the top. And I think what you're doing with your team and what you've done for yourself has been fantastic. And I was just reflecting then the two key areas I'm investing in at the moment, not just financially, but my time. One is in mindfulness. And my wife happens to run what's called the Global Mindfulness Group with 500,000 followers. It's all in Spanish, so it's useless to me. But we're moving to the English language version. But she does a lot of stuff with Indian-based teachers, meditation, yoga, and so on, that she does. And then the second area I'm a stronger investor in is in longevity. And one of my business partners, Gonzalo Ortiz, who was one of the founders of the Machula Group, he is incredibly heavily into longevity. Now, clearly, longevity is not just about how do I live to 180, but it's about how do I find, best practice health that creates the environment to live longer and in a more mindful way. If you think about it, you don't want to live to 180, but being a vegetable, it doesn't make sense.
No, exactly. No. So it's this whole thing, Simon, of sort of matching your health span to your lifespan, right? You don't want the last 15, 20 years of your life, to be unhealthy, where you're literally sort of relying on surgeries and medication to kind of, ensure that you live longer. I mean, you got to be able to do all the fun stuff you're doing today when you're close to 80 or 90, right? Maybe not as proficiently as one can do it now, but still be able to do it, right? I mean, still get your golf game, going, still hang out with friends, still be able to, get a drink once in a while, do your sort of walk, gardening, whatever that might be. So I would love to connect with you offline on that, Simon, because that's an area of interest to me as well. And I believe that sort of this triangulation of the human genome, the blood markers, as well as the digital markers, can create a pretty good perspective of what humans are, or what a person is, and what he or she needs to do to sort of increase their health span and lifespan. And I take a lot of supplements, frankly, which I believe, again, a lot of research is still happening in this space, a lot of longevity tech companies, but I do believe that there is a big business to be made out of longevity as well, where not only are you creating real social impact, you can make money doing that as well. So we should definitely chat on that. I would love to hear what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I will. I'll reach out to you separately. But I think Harvey, we should wrap up because it's been a fascinating conversation. And I've when people say they want to clone themselves, you've actually halved yourself in that whole process. So I don't know if there is another one of you walking around out there. But Dhruv, I think thank you very much. It was been a fascinating conversation and a very interesting insight into that personal journey of yours. So thank you for sharing that.
No, thank you, Simon. Really, really appreciate your asking those questions, and equally sort of all credit to you to come back from sort of your health situation. So kudos to you as well. And Harvey, thanks for sort of curating this, because I think it is an important topic which people need to hear more about and talk more about. So thanks very much for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure. And for transparency from my side, I left 4 jobs in a row due to physical and mental health issues combined. Right? There's all kinds of stuff going on in the world, and a lot of stuff going on in people's heads as well. So got to look after each other. Got to be friendly. Got to be kind, because you don't know what people are going through. Right? So anyway, Dhruv, it's been a fascinating set of conversations with you. We've decided to consolidate the Indian market into one conglomerate by the end of 2024. And now we're going to be cloning people as well. So it's been a hell of a productive conversation. So Simon, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you again, Harvey. Thank you again, Simon.
Okay. Thank you.